Hey guys, I'm Jody.
And I'm Justin.
And we are Board Game Perspective. And today we're taking a look at Arboretum, sent to us by Renegade Game Studios, plays 2 to 4 players, and is a card game all about beautiful trees. So in this game, you're trying to build a path for visitors to walk with tons of trees nearby. And in this game, you have a lot of different kinds of trees. You got the maple tree, the oak tree, cherry blossom, dogwood, and so on. So we're going to do a brief overview of how to play and then come right back up with our thoughts. There are 10 different species in this game, and depending on the player count, depends on how many of those species you will use. I had this set up for 2-player, so we're going to only use 6 species and return the other 4 to the box. So here are 4 different species that I chose, and I'm going to return these to the box. And then each player is going to receive 7 cards, and then you're going to put the remaining cards in the middle as a draw pile. So players are going to be taking turns back and forth, and on your turn, you're first going to draw 2 cards, then you're going to play 1 card from your hand into your Arboretum, which is in front of you, and then you will discard 1 card. So to start off the game, the first player is going to draw 2 cards, and to start, there's only the middle draw pile here, so they will draw 2 cards from the main pile. And then you're going to choose 1 card to start, and let's go ahead and pick this one here, and you're just going to play the card in your play area, and this will be the start of your Arboretum. Now, you also have to discard a card, so let's go ahead and pick, let's pick this one, and you're actually going to have your own personal discard pile, and that needs to be face up, because your opponent might be able to pick cards, as well as you, from your discard pile when you draw cards. After your first card has been placed, you will be putting out future cards adjacent to at least 1 other card in your Arboretum. So it's got to be adjacent horizontally or vertically. So the goal of the game is to score different paths at the end of the game. Now a path is going to be a sequence of adjacent cards in ascending value. So for instance, we got 2, 4, 6, and then 8. So each card in the path has to be a greater value than the card before, but it doesn't have to be in consecutive order, so you can skip numbers. And in order to score a path, the starting and ending card in that path has to be of the same species. Alright, so you're going to score 1 point for each card in the path. So for instance, let's do this species right here. We have 4 in a path, so we have 1, 2, 3, 4, so that would be 4 points for that. And then you will score an additional point for each card in the path if the path is at least 4 cards long and it's the same species. So this is an example right here. So we have 4 base points, and then because it's at least 4 long and the same species, then we get extra points. So there'll be an extra 4 points. So now we're at 8 points. And then you will score an additional point if the path begins with a 1. Now it doesn't begin with a 1, but if I had this card here, then I would score an additional point. And then also, you will score 2 points if the path ends with an 8. So this one does end with an 8, so that's an additional 2 points, so we're at 10. So that example would be a total of 10 points, 1 for each card in the path, and then an additional point for each card in the path because of the 4 criteria and the same species, and then 2 points for the card 8. Let's go ahead and do an additional example. So we have this path here in an ascending value, so we got 2, 4, 6, 7, 8. Now, we are going to score this cherry blossom because it starts and ends with the same species, but we happen to go through another species as well. So what the point value for this is going to be 1 for each card in the path. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then 2 points for the 8 cards. So that's 5, 6, 7 points total for that. We don't get the additional points because it's not the same species for the whole path, and we also don't have a value 1 card here. To even be able to score a path of a certain species, at the end of the game, you had to have the highest sum of that species in your hand compared to the other players. So for example, we're currently scoring this species right here. So this player has only this card right here. So they have a sum of 5 for that tree. And then the other player, let's see, they have only a value of 1. So this player has the higher sum, which allows them to score one path of that species, which is this one right here. There is actually an exception if you have an 8 species card in your hand and the other player has a 1. So for example here, this player doesn't have any of the red trees, but they happen to have this 8 card in their hand, and the other player, their opponent, actually has red trees they're trying to score, but they have this 1 tree value card in their hand. In this case, the value of the 8 is considered to be 0 because the other player happens to have the 1 card in their hand. So if this were the scenario here, this player would actually be able to score the path because this is a 0 in this case. This game also comes with a nice little score pad where at the end of the game, when you're scoring up the different paths, you can put each player's value for each species here, and then whoever has the most points is the winner. Alrighty, so that is a brief overview of Arboretum. So first of all, I gotta say, these cards are just absolutely gorgeous. I mean, the artwork on these cards is just stunning, and full of color. So I gotta say that. Now, I will say, this is a pretty simple game because you're just drawing cards and playing a card in your play area and discarding one. However, that being said, there's actually a lot of thinking that has to go into this game. I feel like there's a high level of
there's strategy, there's planning.
Yeah.
There's planning involved, and what can be frustrating too is that you can do all of this planning and set everything the way that you want it to be. But the problem is that if another person has a greater sum of that kind of card in their hand, all your planning could be for nothing. So, and all of your points can be lost. So it's kind of frustrating in that regard.
So you kind of have to be aware of, like, you have certain numbers in your hand or in your play area, but you got to think, well, okay, this number I haven't seen yet. The other player could have that number. And there's just a lot of I feel like there's a lot of thinking of, like, what does the other player have? What could potentially come up in the deck? What do I have? What sums do I need? But I need, like, score points out here. There's a lot of different, like, scenarios you can kind of think through.
Yeah, there's a lot of things kind of bouncing around in your head about, okay, what's out here? What's actually in people's hand? That if you get it wrong, you end up losing a lot of points.
Yeah, and then I'm not a huge fan of like the 8 rule, the 8 exception where it goes to 0.
That made no sense to me. I didn't get that.
I don't mind the game, but for some reason that rule just makes it not very fun to me. I don't know.
Well, it seemed like it was just dropped in there. I don't know
I don't know
why it was placed in there.
I don't know. It's not my favorite rule, but I mean, all in all, I feel like this is a decent game. And obviously it's a looker. I mean, it's really gorgeous to look at. So I mean, if you like a simple card game but still has some depth and you don't mind a little bit of meanness going on, then maybe you might like this game. It also comes with a nice score pad. I always love score pads. It just makes me happy. So what are your final thoughts? I mean, you like this game? Not so much?
Overall, I'm not a fan. I'm not a huge fan, mostly because of I don't necessarily love games that you're planning a lot of stuff and then suddenly all of it gets mixed at one time. I just don't like that idea, and because of that, yes, it's a beautiful game, but I don't really love the way that it plays. Yeah, it's definitely not for everybody, but I would say it's like in the middle for me. I don't hate the game, and I don't like love it. It's kind of in the middle. But like I said, if you don't mind a little meanness, you like some higher depth for a simple game, you might want to try this one for sure. So guys, that is Arboretum. If you found today helpful, feel free to subscribe and like this video. And thanks for joining us today, guys, and we'll see you next time. See ya.